I crossed my leg. All right then, prove to me that I can count on you. I rested my head on my hand. A dress planner stood by her. You were to pick me 3 wedding dresses for me to pick from. And if I don't like any of them. By the way her face looked, I could tell Kirishima grinned a darkly smile. She only nodded, turning to the scared dressmaker. She sat down just across from me and began to flip through, stopping at some points and then continuing. She stopped at a page and frowned. Turned the book to let me see the page. A long wedding dress fit for a queen. Puffs of lace flowed from the sides to the back. Lace designs all over the corset, bust, and dress. A piece in front that should look like it come off and on. She then turned to the dressmaker. This is a piece of shit. She flat out spoke. All of these are. She then flipped through. No matter how I imagine Her Majesty in these, they don't fit her style. She threw the book to the man. I nodded, and the man quickly left. A new one coming in. She looked to be a timid lady, her hair in a neat tied-up bun, a much smaller sketchbook in hand. She walked over to Lyra, bowed when handing over the book. She then looked to me and bowed much more deeply. I hope these are to your liking. Lyra had been going through the pages until she came across one page. This one. She turned the book over, showing me a sketch of me, a perfect replica. The drawing was of me in what looked to be a bodysuit, with boots, a train that looked to connect to the corset that it had, and an open chest, long sleeves that were also connected to the bodysuit. The girl stayed in that low bow, trembling in fear. I stood and walked over, taking the book in hand and looking through the whole book. Every single outfit was a perfect replica of me, in some sort of outfit, dress, anything really. I slightly giggled. My, it looks like I have a new seamstress. I looked back to her. She had looked up to me with shocked, but a happy look. I want all of these made, not for the wedding, but for other occasions as well. She quickly bowed and took the book back. Yes, right away, Your Majesty. She bowed and quickly left the room. You are dismissed as well. I looked over to Lyra. She nodded, bowing, and then left the room. Ooh, I can't wait to see you in that. Kirishima smiled. I giggled, sitting back in my chair. Kirishima moved to the back of the chair and leaned on it. You know, I would prefer you with nothing and in my arms. He smiled. Lord, I grabbed his cheek with one of my hand and made him look at me. I only plan on being with you. I kissed his nose. He then froze, his smile fading away as he stared into nothing. I paused, watching as he just seemed to stare until he looked back at me, his smile fully gone. Yin, the Tang King plans on killing you. He then looked down, focusing more. He gritted his teeth. I waited, looking at his face for any sign of change, to make sure your life is hell until he can cut your head off. I narrowed my eyes, resting my head on my hand. And God, here I thought I was done with this dead talk. I stood. The Tyrant Queen here? I heard a hum of someone. It was now the festival, and I wanted to enjoy it. Want some tea? Kirishima asked as I sat down. I nodded. A special place for me to stay away from the people and watch. I munched on the little tea cakes that they had brought me, looking at children running about, adults buying and setting up many different things. Kirishima set down a teacup. I forgot to mention that it doesn't have to be tea if you don't like tea. Your favorite. He smiled. Thank you. I took the cup and sipped, opening a book that I had grabbed with me. I could hear many women and young men gossiping about me. I then placed the teacup down. Want me to? He eerily smiled. No, it's a festival after all. They'll forget all about it once it starts. I looked at him. Want one? I lightly waved the tea cakes. He opened his mouth, and I placed the cookie onto his tongue. He closed his mouth and ate the cookie, swaying back and forth, while humming as he enjoyed it. Get back here, kid! We both looked down to the people. Just another. I looked away, taking another sip of my drink. Once I get you, I'll cut off your legs in front of everyone. I snapped my eyes towards the scene. A boy with black hair ran and swerved around many of the people, until the guard had picked him up by the back of his shirt. Now take this as a warning. He raised the boy up into the air. Grab him. I spoke as the guard went to throw the little boy down. I watched as Kirishima stopped the guard before the boy hit the stone floor. I'm sorry, but Her Majesty doesn't want a pleasing day to be ruined by some blood. Kirishima broke the guard's hand, catching the boy with his other arm. I do hope you understand. He smiled. I could see the little boy look up at him, trying to get away from his hold. Kirishima then looked down at the boy. Why don't we go see her now? He smiled. The boy began to yell and cry. Quit your crying. I stood, many of the passerbyers looking up at me. You all want this to be a beautiful day to continue? Now shut up. I looked down. Kirishima, bring him to the castle. I'll see you there. He smiled and nodded. Yawned. Once we made it to the castle, I stayed in my room until Kirishima had brought the kid with him. He was cleaned and dressed. So, why was one of my guards after you today? I looked down at the boy. He sat on his knees, his head low down to look at the floor. Kirishima stood behind me. He told me I couldn't afford anything. He huffed. His cute little cheeks puffed out like a pufferfish. I giggled. And why did he get so upset? He looked to the side, his cheeks still puffed out. I called his mom a whore. It was quiet until I began to laugh. The boy looked at me confused as I wiped away a tear. Man, you kid got some guts. I walked up to him. Got anything else? My guards don't get that pissed over just for some words. He looked down once again. I kicked him in the nuts. Twice. Oh my.